The amphitheater's bioluminescent walls pulsed with a soft amber glow as Professor Alex adjusted his neural interface. 300 students, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the organic lighting, settled into their osmotic seats, ready for another lecture on extinct civilizations. Alex's compound eyes scanned the crowd, lingering momentarily on a peculiar student in the front row. Lisa sat perfectly still, her synthetic skin suit doing its job admirably. Beneath the advanced polymer mesh that mimicked Zaltharian physiology, her heart pounded against her ribs, actual ribs, made of calcium and organic matter, not the crystalline structures that supported the bodies around her. "Today," Alex began, his mandibles clicking in the rhythmic pattern that constituted speech, "we examine the most fascinating extinct species in the galactic records, Homo sapiens, humans." Lisa's breath caught. She'd known this day would come. The University of Proxima Sciences was the most prestigious xenoarchaeology institution in the sector, and she'd fought too hard to earn her place here to let her cover slip now. 2 years of careful preparation, forged genetic markers, and a black market biosuit had gotten her this far. The humans dominated their planet Earth, a water-rich world in the Sol system, for approximately 200,000 years before their extinction roughly 15,000 years ago. Alex projected a hologram into the center of the amphitheater. A blue-green sphere materialized, slowly rotating. Lisa stared at the image of home. Not her home, exactly. Her Earth still existed, still orbited that same yellow star. But according to every record in this timeline, it was a lifeless rock now. The human civilization here had destroyed itself in a cascade of ecological disasters and nuclear warfare long before achieving interstellar flight. "What makes humans particularly interesting," Alex continued, "is their biological fragility combined with their remarkable adaptability. Unlike most sapient species, they lacked natural armor, venom sacs, or psionic abilities. Their bodies were soft, vulnerable to temperature extremes, and required constant hydration." A student in the third row, a Zaltharian with decorative crystalline growths, raised an appendage. "Professor, how did such a weak species achieve dominance?" "An excellent question, Zixter." Alex's antennae twitched with approval. Humans compensated for physical weakness with unprecedented neural plasticity and social cooperation. Their brains, though smaller than ours, formed connections at remarkable speeds. They could adapt to nearly any environment through cultural and technological innovation rather than biological evolution. Lisa took careful notes on her datapad, her fingers moving with practiced alien awkwardness. She'd studied Zaltharian motor patterns for months, suppressing the fluid grace of human movement in favor of their more angular gestures. The hologram shifted, displaying anatomical diagrams. Lisa saw her own species dissected in 3 dimensions: the cardiovascular system, the skeletal structure, the intricate neural pathways of the human brain. It was surreal, sitting here while her professor lectured about her kind like they were fossils. "Note the binocular vision," Alex pointed at the skull diagram. "Humans were persistence hunters. They would track prey for days, running it to exhaustion. Their bodies were built for endurance, not speed. They could regulate temperature through eccrine glands, water secretion through pores, allowing them to function in extreme heat where other predators would fail." "They sound inefficient," another student commented. "All that water loss, how did they survive?" "They were incredibly clever at finding and storing water," Alex explained. "But you're right, they were inefficient by our standards. Humans needed to consume massive amounts of resources. They required sleep, complete neural shutdown, for approximately 1/3 of their lives. They were omnivores, requiring both plant and animal matter, and their digestive systems were remarkably delicate." Lisa shifted in her seat, suddenly self-conscious about the very biological processes being criticized. She'd actually slept last night, in her sealed quarters, carefully hidden from her dormmates. She'd eaten stolen human-compatible rations, her body breaking down proteins and carbohydrates in the delicate system Alex described with such academic detachment. Their most fascinating feature, Alex continued, his tone shifting to something almost reverent, was their capacity for abstract thought and creativity. We've recovered their art, their music, their literature. Species with far superior cognitive capabilities have struggled to match the emotional depth of human creative works. The hologram changed again, displaying recovered artifacts. A painting of a starry night with swirling brushstrokes, a marble sculpture of a human form, musical notation on aged paper. Lisa recognized Van Gogh, Michelangelo, Mozart. Tears threatened to form, but she blinked them away. Zaltharians didn't cry. Their emotion was expressed through pheromones and chromatophore displays, neither of which her suit could replicate convincingly. "Professor," Lisa found herself speaking, keeping her voice modulator steady, "what caused their extinction?" Alex's antennae drooped, the Zaltharian expression of sadness. A combination of factors: climate instability, resource depletion, and ultimately, global warfare. The humans had discovered nuclear fission and fusion, but they lacked the social cohesion to prevent its weaponization. By the time they reached their information age, around their calendar year 2000, the damage was irreversible. Could they have survived, Lisa pressed, if they'd made different choices? The archaeological consensus says no, Alex replied. Human neurology made them prone to tribal thinking, in-group bias, and short-term decision-making. They could intellectually understand long-term consequences, but struggled to act on that understanding when it conflicted with immediate rewards. It was a fatal flaw in their cognitive architecture. Lisa wanted to scream. She wanted to stand up and tear off her biosuit and tell them all that humans had survived, that she was living proof. In her timeline, humanity had made those better choices. They'd unified, reached for the stars, and joined the galactic community. She'd grown up on stories of Earth's near extinction, the razor's edge humanity had walked in the 21st century. And then the experiment had gone wrong. The temporal translation was supposed to be simple: observe parallel timelines, study divergent evolution, gather data. Lisa had volunteered eagerly, a young xenoarchaeology student excited to see other branches of reality. But the equipment had malfunctioned, stranding her here, in a universe where humanity had taken the other path. "We've recovered thousands of human texts," Alex was saying. "Their concept of hope appears frequently. It's a curious notion, believing in positive outcomes despite contrary evidence. Perhaps it was this illogical optimism that made their extinction particularly tragic." The lecture continued for another hour. Alex discussed human mating rituals, their elaborate social structures, their diverse cultures and languages. He spoke about their religions, frameworks for understanding existence that relied on unfalsifiable claims. He analyzed their political systems, their economic models, their endless cycles of conflict and cooperation. Lisa absorbed every word, watching her species analyzed like insects under glass. The other students asked questions, made observations, theorized about what humans might have accomplished if they'd survived. None of them knew they were discussing her ancestors, her people, her lost home. As the lecture concluded, students began filing out, chittering and clicking their discussions. Lisa remained seated, staring at the final hologram, a human child's drawing recovered from ruins, crude stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. "Lisa," Alex's voice startled her. He'd approached while she was lost in thought. "You seem particularly interested in this subject." She looked up at her professor, his compound eyes reflecting her image 100 times over. "I find them fascinating," she managed. "So much potential wasted." "Indeed." Alex's antennae swiveled thoughtfully. "You know, there's a theory, mostly dismissed as romanticism, that humans might have survived somewhere, that perhaps some colony ship escaped before the end, or that refugees found their way off-world." Her single human heart, skipped a beat. What do you think? I think, Alex said slowly, that the universe is vast and strange. I think that absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. And I think, he paused, his gaze seeming to penetrate her biosuit, that anyone who survived would carry an enormous burden, the weight of being the last of their kind. Silence stretched between them. Did he know? Could he possibly suspect? If such a person existed, Alex continued, I would tell them that extinction isn't the end of meaning. The humans are gone, but their story remains. Their art, their music, their ideas, these things persist. Through study and remembrance, we keep them alive. Lisa nodded, not trusting herself to speak. There's a human phrase I encountered in my research, Alex said, one I've always found profound. We are made of star stuff. A scientist named Sagan wrote it. He meant that the atoms in human bodies were forged in ancient supernovas. Even in death, matter persists and transforms. That's beautiful, Lisa whispered. Yes, Alex turned to leave, then paused. Same time next week, Lisa. We'll be discussing human literature. I think you'll find it particularly illuminating. As her professor departed, Lisa sat alone in the empty amphitheater. The bioluminescent walls dimmed to their resting state, and in the growing darkness, she finally allowed herself to cry, silent, human tears that her biosuit absorbed before they could betray her. She was the last human in this universe, trapped among aliens who studied her people's bones and ruins. But Alex was right. Through her memories and her presence, humanity lived on. She would continue to study, to learn, to preserve the truth of what her species had been. And perhaps someday she would find a way home.